Okay, today's movie review is going to be about Idiocracy. Yes, it is a super well-known movie nowadays and currently holds up as a scary possibility of where we are heading. But it was a box office flop sabotaged by Fox Studios that grew on to be a cult classic, blurring the lines of a satirical comedy and a prophetic documentary. As always, I'm going to talk about some fun facts about the movie before I go into the movie fully. So it will be spoiler-free up until a certain point, and then it's spoilers from then on out. So you will be warned. If somehow you still have not seen this movie, that will be the time to stop this, go watch the movie, and then come back to watch the rest of the video. It was directed by Mike Judge, who created Beavis and Butthead, and grew quite the popularity from that, even though some accused him of dumbing down America. He then went on to do Office Space, which was poorly promoted and marketed, and actually failed in the box office when it was released, but it went on to grow a cult following pretty much immediately upon its DVD and VHS release. During filming, he was told no one would want to watch his boring movie about boring office people, and then he needs to get rid of the gangster rap, which he obviously didn't take their advice, and I'm sure we are all grateful for that. I don't know anyone that doesn't at least know of that one scene in the movie with the printer in the field, and then it feels good to be a gangsta. I mean, it's pretty iconic. He said he got the idea for the movie while in Disneyland with his family. He saw two mothers with strollers and kids having a loud argument, screaming and cussing at each other with many small children running around, and just thinking to himself, this is definitely not the future that Walt Disney envisioned for his park. So he went home and he started writing out the idea of dumb people running the world. Originally titled The United States of America, he used a personal experience of himself in junior high of being in a class, and when the rest of the class got a bad grade on an assignment, the teacher announced to the class that they need to be more like him and study harder. So he was told by his classmates that he was going to be beaten up after class, and he just imagined what the world would be like if his junior high class took over. Instead of a beautiful and pristine future with advanced technology, probably be more like Jerry Springer at Walmart. You would think Fox would have learned its lesson after Office Space and trusted their director with his next film, but surprisingly, they hated Idiocracy almost from the start. They gave him a small budget of just $2.4 to $4 million to film it. Different sources say different prices, but that's the closest estimate that I could find in my research. He said he felt like he was being nickeled and dimed by them. They wouldn't even allow him to shoot a few scenes with the effects that he wanted, so Mike reached out to his friend Robert Rodriguez, and he actually stepped in and shot several scenes for Mike for no cost. It wasn't the only issue of Fox hating the idea of the movie, but also legal was dealing with a lot of brand companies that are upset. They are being mocked and not necessarily shown in a very good light, and apparently we're very upset about that. So there are rumors not wanting to ruin any relationships with their sponsors is a big reason it was buried for over a year once it was completely finished and ready to be released. Out of all of his movies, he said this one doesn't bring him pride. He just feels sad that it's slowly becoming a documentary. He tried to exaggerate it in such a way that it wouldn't be possible to come true, but as you will see, it's closer than we may like to think. He has made many jokes in recent interviews when asked about the movie and saying that he is not a prophet. He was about 490 years off. The movie finally came out September 1st of 2006. No one even knew it was coming out as there wasn't any movie trailers put out prior. Only one movie poster was released and put out at theaters. Mike Judge said they made a few trailers, but only one he approved of. They were trying to make it seem like a deep, thoughtful time travel movie rather than what it was, just a normal person finding themselves in a future filled with idiots. Mike was doing an interview waiting for the call to be able to show the trailer prior to release in theaters, but that call never came, so no trailer was shown at all. Which weirdly might have helped build up hype for rentals, as it was pointed out that it was the movie Fox didn't want people to see in a bunch of articles that were written. The only trailer that they did officially make for it was only 15 seconds long, and they did air it as a trailer for the TV release. When they did actually release it, it was in only about 130 theaters, and only for about 2.5 weeks really, maybe 3, with no press screening prior, but it actually got really good critic reviews right off the bat. But due to only a few theaters even having the film and some of the tickets being listed as unnamed Mike Judge comedy on Fandango and other ticket buying sites, the movie obviously flopped and it only made $444,000 in the box office. But Fox Studios technically did release it in theaters, so they upheld their contract and did their part. After getting released for VHS and DVD rentals, though, it went on to make $9 million. So it did really good. It still has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 73%, so the people in general agree it is a good movie. But it is definitely not PC friendly per se, and I'm sure it will be canceled any day now. So this is a warning for anyone who is easily triggered or offended. This is most likely definitely not the movie for you. Okay, spoilers for sure from here on out. During filming, he was brought in a pair of these chunky plastic shoes from the costume department. It was a prototype shoe being developed, and he just thought they were so ugly and very stupid. And a small part of him was worried that they would become popular, so he almost didn't include them, but then thought there was no way. If you believe it or not, those shoes were Crocs. Terry Crews auditioned for the role multiple times, even telling the director at one point, if he can find a better actor for the role of President Camacho, then they should hire him immediately. Deep down, Terry knew he was the perfect fit for it, and he convinced Mike he was the one for the role. In 2016, he actually made some fake presidential running ads that he did with Funny or Die, where he made it a point to make fun of both sides, trying to show how funny and sad the state of the world has gotten. There was reports that him and Mike Judge wanted to make some short anti-Trump ads for TV, but Fox was worried about backlash, so they weren't allowed to make those and had to scrap the idea.
I'm President Camacho, and I come back from the future to address your stanky boots. I'm tired of all these lip candidates talking about they want to create some jobs. Jobs, my ass. You don't know nothing about no jobs. I'll show you how to create some jobs. Bam! I just created 4 jobs.
The scene shot in the movie theater of the movie Ass airing was shot using a reform school as the audience, and before they were even given any acting direction, they all just started laughing at the shot of an ass. And Mike Judge wondered, why even bother making the film? Just put this out, I guess. And maybe the movie was more of a reality than he thought it was? And there are elements of reality in it, as the memes are starting to show some really great comparisons. I mean, the Secretary of State in the movie was brought to you by Carl's Jr.
I'm the Secretary of State, brought to you by Carl's Jr.
And we almost had a head CEO of Carl's Jr., Andy Pudster, as the Secretary of Labor elected by Trump. But he withdrew knowing he lacked the votes that he would need. Or maybe he just got memed too much and didn't want to make it any worse. Corporations are kind of taking everything over. I mean, look at Walmart and Amazon.
They call it Merger Monday. They don't call it Merger Monday for nothing.
Media mega Merger Monday.
Merger Monday? The rental car business is now 90% dominated by just 3 companies. The US beer industry is 70% controlled by just 2 companies.
Mom and pop shops are pretty much a thing of the past.
Small businesses are the backbone of this nation's economy.
Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are the backbone. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy.
Droughts are getting worse, as well as fires, which is affecting crops.
The report says global average temperature rise could reach or exceed 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next 20 years. Now that is 10 years sooner.
The increased heat will change weather patterns, bringing more droughts and more rainfall, researchers say.
Luckily, we're not at the point of plants craving electrolytes, but there's still many people denying climate change is even any kind of issue.
A new report says climate change is a growing target for false news and misinformation. According to Axios, climate change is the easiest news to fake. It really comes down to politics. If you don't like the idea of regulating and reducing carbon emissions that come from fossil fuels, you're going to be more likely to distrust information that you see.
Trash issues and littering and overflowing isn't quite as bad as the movie, but there are issues with recycling, and one-time use plastic is just getting worse, so it's not getting any better. Fake news. People will just believe anything almost nowadays.
Remember when Kyrie Irving told us the earth was flat?
Idiots in charge. I mean, again, look at the memes. Alright, now to the movie. This will be a quick rundown of what it's about and some of my favorite clips. Let's go! Starts off with a quick narration, just setting the tone and giving some context.
As the 21st century began, Human evolution was at a turning point. Natural selection, the process by which the strongest, the smartest, the fastest reproduced in greater numbers than the rest, a process which had once favored the noblest traits of man, now began to favor different traits. Most science fiction of the day predicted a future that was more civilized and more intelligent. But as time went on, things seemed to be heading in the opposite direction, a dumbing down. How did this happen? Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most and left the intelligent to become an endangered species.
Having kids is such an important decision. We're just waiting for the right time. I'm pregnant again! I got too many damn kids! Thought you was on the pills of... Oh, no! What's the thing with Brittany? Brittany? No, there's no way we can have a child now. Not with the market the way it is now.
And explaining that lower intelligent people do not plan or take precautions, that they tend to have lots of kids accidentally, lots and lots of kids, where more intelligent people seem to wait to have kids, and sometimes they wait way too long. So, by the numbers, the dumber population overtakes everyone. He meant it more in like a nurture than nature. Some accused him of promoting eugenics, but he said he never meant for it to be about genetics, just that they were raised like poor white trash, lots and lots of kids. You don't really care about what happens to kid 5 or 6. Then we go to meet Joe, Luke Wilson, our main character, who is an army guy who is selected for being the most average guy, with no family, so no one to ask any questions, and Rita, the female volunteer, who is a prostitute, that agreed to the army experiment of being put into suspended animation for a year for her charges being dropped and a small fee, as well as an agreement from her pimp Upgrade. This is when the two meet, Rita and Joe, and you see how Joe is just a normal, sweet, kind of naive guy, and she does lie to him and says that she's a painter. He helps calm her down and talks her out of walking out in the last minute. And again, this is not a very PC-friendly movie. It only gets worse from here. While they are under suspended animation, the general gets arrested. The project gets covered up, and the base gets demolished. The two are forgotten about and get buried for over 500 years. Until the Great Trash Avalanche of 2505. This causes Joe's pod to crash into Dax Shepard's apartment. Joe then wakes up and he has no clue when or where he is. Just seeing a bunch of trash and a guy watching TV. He tries to ask for whoever is in charge and is just being told to shut up when he asks any questions. Dax then gets up and throws him out of the window he just smashed through. Unable to get any answers to what's going on, he goes to the hospital. When extremely thirsty, he finds the water fountain is Brondo. He tries asking where to get some water.
Excuse me, I think this might be Gatorade or something. I was just looking for some regular water.
Water?
Yeah,
You mean like in the toilet? What for?
just to drink.
He then goes to the diagnostic machine and is given some plugs. After some confusion, figures out that they are in the wrong holes. He also sees a magazine but just writes off the date as a misprint, and finally meets the doctor, Justin Long. He is super funny, but I'm sure he's worried that this role will be brought up in a way to cancel him any day now. And this is where the whole "where's your tattoo" happens. Why you ain't got no tattoo?
Where's your tattoo? Why come you don't have a tattoo?
He notices another date misprint, and he finally looks out the window to see the state of the world he's woken up to, and is genuinely freaked out. Now having to flee the hospital or be arrested, he takes off. He tries to get some food from a Carl's Jr. vending machine, and gets arrested for being unscannable.
Your kids are starving. Carl's Jr. believes no child should go hungry. You are an unfit mother. Your children will be placed in the custody of Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. You. I'm eating.
And goes to a court where Frito Pendejo, Dax Shepard, is his lawyer, and ends up pretty much just throwing Joe under the bus, as the whole room just bullies Joe and makes fun of him before everyone just says he's guilty. This is when we find Rita, who is trying to get a hold of Upgrade, and a guy approaches. When he propositions her, she tells him if he pays her right now, she'll take care of him tomorrow. And back to Joe, who gets his tattoo and his name of Not Sure for the rest of the movie. He also gets an IQ test taken so they can give him a job while he's in jail. And he is sent to prison. This is where he gets his Crocs at. While waiting in line to go into jail, he makes eye contact with an inmate who is sitting on someone and says he's next. So he quickly comes up with a plan, tells the guard he's in the wrong line and is supposed to be getting out. So they take him to another line, and he escapes. Not knowing what to do, though, he goes back to Frito's and explains he'll give him lots and lots of money if he helps him to get to a time machine, which Frito says breaks down all the time and is really expensive. Frito agrees to help, and they go to find Rita, explaining that they can go back in time, so she goes with them. She's still very worried Upgrade is after her. This is where we see the true brand collective while cutting through the Costco to get to the time machine. After having a bit of difficulty understanding how time travel would work, Joe gets caught by the cops at Costco. But instead of going to jail this time, he is taken to the White House where he meets the heads of the government, and he meets the president. He is told now that he is the Secretary of Interior, but confused asking what that even is, or why him. He is told he is the smartest person in the country. They got the results from his IQ test, and during the American Express address that President Camacho gives, he realizes that they expect him to fix everything in just a week, or else they will throw him back in jail. He tries to rationalize with them, but they just ignore it and act like he has it, no problem. He's so smart. Joe gets them to get Frito, his lawyer, and tries to get him to help him find his way to the time machine. But really only getting told it's by the museum and some confusing hand gestures, he tells Frito just draw him a map. And he has them also get Rita for him as well because he doesn't want to leave her behind. They head out to the crops to check out the situation and maybe give them a chance to make a run for it. Frito gives them the map, so Joe and Rita sneak off, and they realize that the map is useless, so they decide that they'll need to figure out another way to the time machine. This is when we figure out that they are watering the crops with Brondo. A quick narration later, they explain Brondo has taken over pretty much everything.
Brondo the Thirst Mutilator had come to replace water virtually everywhere. Water, the basic component of all life, had been deemed a threat to Brondo's profit margin.
And Joe has some difficulty talking them into watering the dead crops with water instead of Brondo.
But Brondo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
So wait a minute. What you're saying is that you want us to put water on the crops?
Yes.
Water. Like out the toilet?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be out of the toilet, but yeah, that's the idea. But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolyte.
Before he just convinces them that the plants told him that they want water, not Brondo. Unfortunately, before the crops have a chance to do anything due to the salt in the topsoil, the Brondo stock tanks and the economy crashes, causing people to get laid off, so riots and looting start happening, and everyone decides it's Joe's fault, that he messed it all up, and he needs to be locked up and rehabilitated. That is basically an extreme monster truck rally execution. Rita goes to visit him in jail, where they show he has now been chained to a big rock, so he can't escape again, and he tries to talk her into leaving him and going back to their time, but try to help make the world a better place this time so it won't end up like it is now. Then Joe and his rock are loaded up in a little car with some extra decor against a couple of big monster trucks. We see Rita and Frito talking about getting her to the time machine, and she looks out a window and sees a rose is growing. His plan has actually worked, and she knows she has to help him, so they go to the event. Seeing even more plants along the way, the crops really are growing. But Joe's car stalls, and he has some issues right off the start, kind of getting tossed all around by the trucks. The rock falls out of the back, yanking Joe from the car, causing the trucks to crash into each other, and Joe survives. But so did the other guy. In the third truck,
Beef Supreme himself might come out of retirement.
Beef Supreme. Anyone else want some Taco Bell? Rita gets to the event, but she can't get anyone to pay attention to her, so she comes up with a plan, and she has Frito take a cameraman from the event to go show the crops to everyone, and she takes over the main control room with all the screens. Joe, now having to fight a guy with a rocket launcher flamethrower thingy, manages to break his boulder chain and gets behind the crash trucks when he sees the microphone and manages to get it. He tries to talk to the crowd, trying to get them to see he was only ever trying to help them, but they all just laugh, and they try to raise the mic out of the arena, but he grabs a hold of it and starts getting raised out, so they just lower it back down. Frito and the cameraman almost fail at their job, but manage to show the crops at the last second, and everyone sees that his plan actually did work. President Comancho comes in at the last second to help save him and pardons him. Joe still has plans to take the time machine, but Rita decides she wants to stay, that she has better prospects in this world. This is when President Comancho says he wants to make Joe the new vice president. Joe tells him no, though, and says that he still plans to take the time machine back home. That's when someone says that ride is lame, and it breaks down all the time. Starting to connect a few dots, they finally make it to the time machine, where Joe accepts that he is stuck in this time, and he goes on to become the next president even. Has a happy life with Rita, starting a small family, and still trying to do everything that he can to help fix things. And even Rita started painting. After a post-credit scene, we see Upgrade has a moment, and he just might come find her after all.
I'm gonna go find his hoe.
So yeah, this is one of my favorite movies, and it has become more relevant over the last 6 years or so, I feel. If you have any fun facts that I missed about the movie, let me know in the comments. Or put your favorite quote. Thank you guys for watching. If you made it to this point, you should put Trash Panda or these emojis in the comments, so I know you made it to the end. Please like and subscribe if you're not already. Otherwise, thanks for coming back. More of my favorite movie reviews and a couple story times will be coming soon. I heart your faces. Boy, boy, boy.
From the creator of Office Space,
where am I?
Comes a vision of the future that's a no-brainer.
And tomorrow night looks even more better.
Luke Wilson, Idiocracy. Own it on DVD today.